Welcome to our annual Spring Career Week. We are so excited for you to join us virtually this year. We have a lot of events happening this week and guests to join us throughout the week, so we are so excited that you are here with us today for our first event. This session will be recorded, and we invite you to submit questions throughout the session into the chat with the understanding that we will save student questions at the very end. Today we have a student panel to give us a glimpse into the changes in our current virtual world and searching for jobs and internships. This event is going to be very exciting as we have a student moderator leading our panel today. Our student moderator is Titus Bang. Titus is seeking and applying to internships currently, and his perspective and our student panelists and alumni panelists will aid us all to understand what to expect while searching. I would like to turn it over now to our student moderator, Titus Bang.
I'm Titus, and I'm currently an IMed major with a concentration in user experience design. And I'll start by letting the panelists introduce themselves. So we'll start with Rohini.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rohini Gubashu. I am an alumni from Harrisburg University. I recently graduated in December of 2020. My degree was MIBA with concentration in business analytics.
And then next will be Marilyn.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Spencer. I'm currently a junior here. I'm studying business with a concentration in data analytics.
And then next will be Jesse.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Jesse Garner. I'm a junior at HU. I transferred from Hack at the beginning of 2019. My concentration is in cybersecurity with an overall major in computer.
Hi, my name is Tyler Weaver. I graduated in May of 2020 with computer science and a concentration in software engineering.
So all of our panelists are experienced or have experience searching for internships and jobs during the past year. So the first question we would like to ask is, what are you currently searching for, or what did you search for in regards to your internships? And we'll start the question off with Marilyn.
I was looking for my internship. It was the start of really quarantine and lockdown, so my options were limited right away. So I was already looking for remote opportunities. So I landed upon doing a social media internship because I'm a business student. It kind of went hand in hand. It's not exactly what I wanted for my concentration for data. I was hoping to get something more in person, more data driven, but I landed with a remote social media internship.
Awesome. What about you, Jesse?
Enough to begin my search just a few weeks before the shutdowns happened with COVID. So I was able to make a lot of connections before the dynamics of everything sort of changed. The current internship that I have is not directly related to cybersecurity. I was trying to keep an open mind about that because cybersecurity involves being like a jack of all trades in a way of a lot of different things. So I was more than happy for the position that I did get. But yeah, that's it.
What about you, Tyler?
Job search around the end of May when I graduated. Unfortunately, all the companies were no longer hiring at that point due to COVID and the unfamiliar circumstances. Fortunately, they were hiring again at the beginning of September, and I managed to land a job with Tito Software.
What job is that?
A software engineer.
Awesome, awesome. And then Rohini?
Jobs and internships when I was still in college. During my last semester, really, I had an amazing internship over the summer where I was doing purchasing, and that's when I realized that's what I really wanted to do. Unfortunately, there weren't any position at that point that I could really work for purchasing. So I was lucky enough to get a job as an account care coordinator, which really showed me the insights of the opposite of a supplier part. So I was lucky enough to find a job at Eurofins as a purchasing sourcing specialist right now.
The answers and the responses. So I'm also searching for an internship. And so as we all have been searching, what was the first step in your process? For me, what I did was I took like the top 100 list of internship companies, and then I looked at each company and saw if they had internships for my major. I wanted to ask what you guys did for the first step for your for the internship or job process. And this time we can start with Jesse.
Yeah, so the Career Week event that I went to, there was a ton of companies, probably close to 70 companies at the actual event. So what I did was I had a list of at least the majority of them, and I tried to single out maybe 2 to 4 companies that I was really going to target. You know, go on their website, what's their mission statement, what do they do, who do they work with, what's the company culture, anything that you could see from face value. Because the last thing you want to do talking to a representative or going to an interview is saying, you know, what is the answer to this very simple question that's on the homepage of their website? So I would encourage, you know, if you're going to go to a Career Week event, don't just go there and talk to every single person. It's good to talk to a lot of people, but really target, you know, a couple of people, a couple of organizations that you're really interested in, because they'll notice, especially when you talk to someone who says, oh, you should talk to this representative and here's their name. Because this happened to me last year. I met someone who referenced someone's name, and a couple days later at another Career Week event, I recognized them by name, and I could tell that they were very impressed. So recognizing names, they notice it, especially at mass events like that where you're shaking hands with sometimes 100 people in one day. Being able to differentiate like that is, they notice it.
All right. And then what about you, Marilyn?
So when I was searching for my internship, it took a little bit of time realizing what I had wanted to do, especially because, like I said, my options were pretty limited when I had begun my search. So what really helped for me was looking at the experiential learning Facebook page and seeing what Rebecca and the other staff posted on the page. So I applied to a couple opportunities there. None of them ended up working out for me, but I also looked at Chegg Internships because they have a lot of options to filter what you want. So I was able to filter by location, by part-time, full-time, if it was a remote opportunity, and even the type of opportunity that it was, for instance, social media or something more data focused. So that's where I found my best luck, and that's eventually where I was able to secure my internship.
And so what about you, Tyler? What was the first step for that for your search process for the job?
My first step was determining exactly how far I wanted to drive to a potential job, not understanding at the time that it might all be remote. So I went to all the major search sites, LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, and I set up a radius of, I believe it was like 25 miles is what I was willing to work, and then just applied to every place I possibly could.
And what about you, Rohini?
A recent graduate, it was obviously hard for me to know what I really wanted to do. Having an internship really opened my eyes, knowing how I enjoyed the job. I would also work on my resume as often as I could. I would always filter my job search in Indeed or LinkedIn for purchasing. So every time I got a notification when the jobs was posted, I would make sure my resume worked in a way where I had the qualifications that they needed. So that's what most of my first step looked like.
And so after searching, did you guys attend any networking events held virtually or at HU? This week we have a variety of virtual events at HU Career Week. So for those that are watching, definitely check them out. I'll be attending the CIE one with it was NVIDIA, SurveyMonkey, and LinkedIn. So some of HU's alumni that work there, they'll be doing a panel there, so that'll be interesting. So yeah, the question is, did you guys attend any networking events held virtually or at HU? And I'll start with Tyler this time.
In-person networking events all the time. I believe it was a very big help. I got to talk to a lot of different companies, and thankfully, I learned a bunch of different interview techniques from talking to those people.
Awesome, awesome. And so, what about you, Rohini?
I definitely did. Went to a lot of in-person networking events that HU held. So yeah, it definitely helped knowing like how many companies that they are out there willing to hire you. Especially, I don't live in Harrisburg. I live around Lancaster, so that was the easier part for me. A lot of companies from Lancaster were also up there. So communicating with them, getting to know them, making connections was definitely helpful.
Marilyn?
Definitely at a couple of the in-person and some of the more recent virtual networking events. I was at the job fairs when we did have them. And it's just great to talk to everyone, all the representatives, even if it's not a job that you see yourself in the future. That's the point of networking. You just kind of talk with them, introduce yourself, maybe pass off your resume, and that can take you somewhere. It might not, but hey, at least you know the person and you got experience talking with them. I also, for other events that I would go to, I went to the one, it was about last year, I think, for resumes when they had some industry professionals discussing the importance of resumes and interviews. Those are crucial for landing any job and even an internship. So those were the ones that I attended.
Awesome, thank you. And then Jesse?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like there was a follow-up for the original. So there was an event on Tuesday that had probably 80 organizations, and then the following Thursday, one that had maybe about 7 or 8. So obviously, they're not going to be doing interviews at these mass events. When I went to the one at HU with about 7 organizations, I talked with each one. And when trying to find an internship, this is a mid to long-term development. Unless you're really lucky, not going to find an internship right off the bat. So like Marilyn said, like you're going to have to make networking. The more you can find out about other organizations, the more you're going to know about just organizations in general. It'll probably answer a lot of your questions, so you're more prepared for when you do get an actual interview. And I would encourage just to talk to people, even if you're not 100% on the job. It'll be information that'll be useful.
Common theme that you guys get to learn a lot about the field that you guys are in, meet a lot of faces, especially if you guys aren't in Harrisburg areas, you guys can kind of see what's around you, your area. But we talked about this one word, networking, and I thought that was really interesting because nowadays we're kind of in this remote environment. So with networking being done mainly online, what are some tips you could give about networking online? For me, the biggest thing for me with networking is connecting with faculty because, for example, my professor, the advisor for my major is Dr. Tamara Payton. So Dr. Payton would always give me invites to small groups and communities such as like students of UX or design buddies, which are geared towards student UX students and things like that. So that's the one thing I did, but I was wondering what other strategies or techniques you guys have of networking online. And we'll start with Jesse for this one.
Immediately, what comes to mind is LinkedIn. And I shouldn't be the first person to talk about this because my LinkedIn definitely needs some work as it currently stands. But I would say definitely, post your experience if you have certifications. That's great. All of your connections that you make. When you go to a career week, if you talk to someone from an organization, say, hey, do you mind if I add you on LinkedIn? And maybe not just go ahead and add them on LinkedIn 10 minutes after talking with them, after not saying anything specifically about it. Same thing goes for like first interviews. I wouldn't necessarily, get a call from a hiring manager and immediately add them on LinkedIn before the interview. So it can go a long way, and it shows like what experience you've had, who you've worked with, and they can see, what is that person involved in. And if they're connected to you, that there's some sort of a, correlation there.
Awesome, thank you. And what about you, Marilyn?
LinkedIn. I mean, it's kind of the like business social media. It's where everything is. For a couple of my internships that I was applying to, I would even check out the company on LinkedIn to see if maybe they didn't have enough information on the website, maybe just see what their vision is, what they're posting about. But definitely LinkedIn. I also like, Titus, how you mentioned your advisors, and you can't ignore them because they have done a lot more networking than you, and they might know people that you're trying to connect with. So definitely reach out to your advisors. I've done this for different projects, but they definitely have information towards internships or jobs even, because they're your advisors. They have your best interest at heart.
And then what about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm going to bandwagon a little bit and say setting up search results on LinkedIn or any career searching site is definitely invaluable. The other two things I would recommend are looking at company reviews on Glassdoor if the company you're applying to has one, and definitely working with career services staff. They are really there to help you, and they have been invaluable in helping me land a job.
Rohini?
Oh, no, no. LinkedIn is like the number one job search page. It's like Marilyn said, it is like a Facebook social media of professionalism. So LinkedIn would obviously, like, if you guys go see someone or like if you're just researching on a company, LinkedIn, like search the company up, you'll learn a lot more about them than just like their website. Like you mentioned, Titus, in the beginning, calendar invites from your advisors really help. Like even if you guys do get in a new job search, when I was interning face to face. COVID wasn't a thing. Still a little intimidated with my managers, but with being it online and being in a professional world, they do understand that it's hard that you're training online, so they're really there to help you out. And I would not be afraid to just send them a calendar invite saying, "Hey, I'm just an intern. Like, can you please help me out with this? I'm here to learn." I think they will completely understand and have your back on that.
Going on from networking and in the best interest of Career Week, if a student was attending a virtual employer session or career fair, what advice would you give them prior to attending and like meeting all these companies from different places? Um, so this time we'll start with Tyler.
Trying to find out what companies are going to be there beforehand and asking pretty personalized questions to each company. And don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what they're there for.
Awesome, thank you. And then what about you, Jesse?
I think that's a good point. You could bring to the table like your own experience, and you know enough about the company to have a general understanding of what's happening. So you can say, here's my experience. I understand that you do things this way, and maybe add some more technical questions. Hiring managers may not know about this like specifically, but they can at least see that you're thinking about it, you're interested, and you would likely have these skills necessary and knowledge to take that on.
And then what about you, Rohini?
Virtual, it's obviously a little bit harder for us now, but I would say like act like it's not really virtual. It's just that it's a computer. Dress nice. Like if we were in a career fair, we would obviously dress professional. Try to dress professional. Be in an environment that there isn't a lot of noises, so they're not distracted by you. When we're face to face, obviously they'll be like, "Hey, you look really interested in our company. Let me get your resume and let me send you my contact information." But with being virtual, you may never know that they're writing your name down. So just try to impress them, ask them questions like Tyler said, because that really shows that how much you know about the company, of that you're really interested in working with them.
Marilyn.
Yeah, going off all of those, a great way to find out about the company is to look them up on LinkedIn. There is so much information about the companies there, but what I like to do when I'm in those situations is also ask them about their culture, maybe some of the less technical aspects about the job. You might already know the job description, you might have already talked with them about that. But if it's a job you're seriously considering, you're going to want to know if it's a good fit for you. So a great way to do that is to ask about the company's culture, maybe some of their benefits, anything like that, like if they have Little Lamps coffee or something like that. I know WebFX does that. Those are little things, but it shows that you're interested as well. So like Rohini said, it's definitely a good way to make an impression.
You guys all talked about research almost and having that information beforehand, looking at their LinkedIn. So prior to meeting an event or meeting an employer, what research or information like specifically did you search for? Are you guys eyeing out for certain types of information, maybe certain numbers or certain things like that? And we'll start with Marilyn this time.
I like to know what they pay. That's kind of forefront for me. Because if they're not paying what you think you're worth, then don't do it. I mean, we all have different opportunities in life, but I think if we're further along, just if you're being underpaid, don't do it. But that being said, I also look for years of experience. If you have, maybe they want a couple years of experience in some different skills, different programs, like in business. Depending on the concentration of business or what you're doing specifically, they might look to know if you have any computer programming languages. That's not my forte, but they might want to know that. More basic things are like Excel, Word. So you look for number-wise, maybe 1 to 2 years experience, depending on the job. And then I also like to know maybe the soft skills or the demands of the company, how many hours you might be working in a day. Some companies will list that in the job description as well. So those are my hit lists for what I'm looking for in a job.
Thanks for sharing the hit list. And then what about you, Tyler?
Things I searched for were the company history. That can provide a lot of information, especially like other places they've acquired. And then I've also searched for other positions that they were hiring for. And the reason I do that is because you could potentially get hired for a position that you didn't initially apply for. For example, I just interviewed someone 2 weeks ago for a senior engineering position, and we changed that to just a regular software engineer.
And then what about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so when considering a job, I want to like understand what am I taking on, where do I want to be later on, and how does that sort of bridge the gap. So for me, I do eventually want to get involved in a more security-oriented role. This job, when I was interviewing for it, did seem like it would be a good bridge to that, and I was actually very lucky that they're implementing an entirely new security framework infrastructure through a SIEM. It's a Security Incident Event Manager, for those who don't know. And I have a seat at the table in making that, so that was just very lucky for me. Yeah, but I would say just keep in mind that it's in line with what you want to do, and do research and understand how it'll help you get there.
And that sounds so interesting. SIEM? Is that correct? SIEM? Okay. I'll probably Google search it after this.
Sim.
And so, what about you, Rohini?
Look for in a company is their culture. What do they do? What do they thrive for? I think that's very important to me. Like Tyler said, also look for another positions that they're hiring for. For me personally, when I was applying for Eurofins, I didn't really go for the purchasing sourcing specialist role just because they didn't have any open, but they did find me via Indeed, and they did email me like, hey, we have this position open. Are you available for an interview? So for me doing the research on the company, Eurofins came to Harrisburg University a lot of times, but I never really went to their desk because it didn't really attract me. I didn't think it was my type of company, but turns out it is. Finding out like how much space that I have to grow within the company is very important to me as well. So one of the questions that I always like to ask is like, is there room for growth within the company? Another thing is also that I like to stay in a company long term, so that really helps me, and to know how much the company has grown over years.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm getting like a lot of different themes, but I think if I was to kind of merge everything together, it's a lot of researching almost in self for your self-interest. So uh, do, researching topics that are best for you, honestly, and you as a person, or when you research for this information. So um, now we're gonna go into the topic about virtual interviews, because interviews are now done virtually for many companies. And um, so, what was your virtual interview experience like? Did you have multiple interviews, or did you speak with one or multiple recruiters? Just want to get some vibe on that. I think it'll be really helpful for me too when I go into interviews and things like that. And we'll start with Marilyn this time.
Okay, so when I was interviewing for my internship, this will not be the case for everybody. But I had applied for my internship. As I said, I got it. I looked for them on Chegg. I found them on Chegg. I had sent them an email, and then sort of my resume, cover letter type of mashup, just sort of an introduction, basically. Um, so then they had emailed me back, and they were in California. So when I got the email, it was like midnight here, and that was a little weird. But anyway, they were already interested in me for them working. And I had asked them, I'm like, okay, so moving forward, well, in my initial email, I'd said, I'll contact you within like 2 weeks, gave them like a time if I didn't hear back from them, just to see where they were at. Well, they had emailed me a lot sooner, which was great. So I was like, cool, moving on. I was like, do you want to meet maybe for some sort of a virtual interview? And they were like, no, we're good. Email's fine. So I really it was weird. I didn't have much of an interview. It was really just back and forth emails, and then I was on their Slack, and that was it. That being said, I have had virtual interviews before, and they kind of went a lot like this, where somebody would ask me a question, I'd answer it, nice background, professional dress, quiet room, and you'll be good, especially if you've researched the company beforehand, you know what you want, you know what you're looking for, you'll be fine. A lot of the times interviews can be nerve-wracking, but I think virtually you're in your own space already, so you're already a little bit more comfortable than if you're walking into a new building, it's unfamiliar. Um, just you'll be okay.
What about you, Jesse? What was your virtual interview experience like?
So my virtual internship interview was actually fairly easy. So to backtrack for a little bit, the actual interview took place in March, so about a year ago. There were two interviews. The first one was just kind of like a filtering, making sure you're not coming in jeans and like a hoodie with paint on it, basically. They're just seeing, are you an okay person? And I guess I passed because they brought me back for a second one. With the second one, it was with the same person who did the first one and the IT director, where they asked like technical questions, like work style. And I had an answer for everything. I felt like I was personable and knocked everyone out of the park. I was not very worried about not getting it, but about 7 or 10 days later, COVID hit, and they're like, sorry, this position has now evaporated. But they contacted me back in, I think, November, just a few months ago, and they said, hey, we're having this position open up again. We thought of you. We'd like you to have a, official meeting with us through, I think it was Microsoft Teams. And I said, sure. And the actual interview itself a few months ago was hardly an interview. They even admitted that it was just a formality. They're just saying, hey, hi, we liked you. This position's opening up. Are you good to start? Really? Okay, awesome. So it was pretty smooth. Once I had the ball rolling, it was easy to pick back up.
Then what about you, Rohini? What was your virtual interview experience like?
3 interviews with Eurofins for this sourcing specialist position. The first one was HR. They just wanted to see what my experience was. Am I a good fit? Am I not? By the end of the day, I got a call from the HR saying, hey, we would like to bring you in for another interview. How does that sound for you? So with virtual, like Marilyn said, you need a quiet space. You want to dress to impress. You want to know about the company for sure, and know the questions that they're going to ask. Really look into the position you applied for, because not going to lie, one time I did apply. I was crazily applying on LinkedIn and I forgot what position I applied for. I got a call back and I'm just like, I have no idea what position this is. So keep in mind, like, keep track of the positions that you apply for, know what you're really wanting. That really helps. And then I also had a third interview. So my second interview was with my manager, and the third interview was with my manager's manager, who oversees the whole purchasing and sourcing department. So know that you have a time limit when it comes to virtual. For me, at least, my first one did not was just a regular phone call. My second two was so it was face to face in a way, like it was virtually face to face. We had to have our cameras on, so which was really helpful because you get to see the person, you get to know the body language virtually, so it helps.
What about you, Tyler?
I had about the same experience as everyone else. I had 3 interviews, with my last interview being 3 hours long, and I had to interview 3 different people during that time. It was definitely a test of endurance. I can say that I currently conduct interviews for the company I work for, and oftentimes it does take place in, like, you have 3 or 4 different interviews, and then a panel comes together at the end, and you all vote on whether you think the person should be hired or not. It's okay to mess up, one interview, as long as you show consistency throughout the others.
Awesome, thank you. And thanks for that almost introspective look on the other side of the hiring process and what they think. And so I'm getting like this common theme of there's like multiple interviews, and I think one really important thing I got from it was to have that good impression during those interviews, because you never know when they're going to call you back for a future opportunities, even if you don't get that singular opportunity at the moment. And so that's really interesting. And going on from that, what challenges did you face in your search or in that interview process, and then how did you overcome them? I'm sure there was a lot of road bumps and blocks in the way, and I'd love to get your insights on what you guys think on that. And we'll to get those insights, we'll start with Tyler for this one.
My biggest challenge was actually finding a place that was hiring. When I began my job search, COVID just began to hit, so all of the job listings on LinkedIn, Indeed, I would apply to, and they would get back saying that they were no longer interested in hiring for that particular position. I overcame that particular challenge by quantity of applications. I just kept sending out applications to every job listing I could that I was suited for.
You, Marilyn?
I definitely sent out a lot of applications. I think my biggest roadblock was not hearing back from people, which was frustrating, honestly, when you send out an application and then you don't get anything back, but you feel like, you would be a good fit for the job. But it's okay. I mean, you just need to have thick skin with it a little bit. It's really not personal, especially when I was applying. A lot of people, either maybe they had the opportunity and they just weren't doing it anymore, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I just sent out a lot of applications, and my other challenge was seeing the opportunities that I was looking at, I didn't feel qualified for. And to overcome that, I just kept looking. A lot of them maybe I didn't feel qualified for, but I was in some way, and I just was really nervous because it was my first time interning. But it's really okay. You don't have to worry about that so much. Again, thick skin, just keep applying. Someone will be out there and you'll find the right opportunity for you.
And then what about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so my biggest problem was probably mid to end last semester, where I contact my advisor and say, hey, I need to start scheduling for next semester. And they say, all right, well, internship is coming up. And, I don't have one lined up. I've had a couple of interviews with a couple of companies. I've done some job searches, and things are looking sparse, mostly due to the current state of how things are right now. But as we mentioned, like, you really want to be putting out a wide net over a long period of time. So if you want to get a position, you're not just going to get it immediately. You're going to need some consistency in a wide net. So I am a bit of an exception because I was lucky. Like, I was submitting applications anywhere I could find them and trying to follow up with people that I had talked to. But for whatever reason, the opportunity that is currently in my lap, it sort of just fell there. Like, it sort of just found me again.
What about you, Rohini?
Like I said previously, I did apply to a lot of places. Whether it was a good fit, whether it was not, even though it was not, I saw it as a way that I could get an interview experience from them, especially all of us being new to virtual everything. So I was like, you know what, I'll apply. If I don't like it, I'll say, I'm sorry, but I'm no longer interested, or whatever the case might be. But the positions that I really did want it and I wasn't getting it, or like Marilyn said, I wasn't getting called back, was really tough. So in that case, what I did was I scheduled meetings with our career service team. I would talk to them. I'd be like, hey, so I think I know what I want to do now, and it's sourcing and purchasing. So can you please help me, work on my resume? I wrote a cover letter. Can you please check it for me? Like, do not feel scared to use your sources that we do have.
Awesome, thank you. And so I guess the big thing is the quantity. I think all of you guys touched on that where and I like this quote, which I wrote it down, is the casting a wide net over a long period of time for like these internships and jobs, because not hearing back is pretty normal, and not to take that personally. I think that was awesome. And so, we casted that net, we got the interviews, we got the job. So what was that first day at your internship or your job like? Whether it's virtually or whether it was hybrid, I'm just curious to know what the first day was like. And to talk about that, I guess we'll start with Marilyn.
Internship was for a social media copyright. Basically, what I did is I took the articles off of this news site that I was interning for and put them on their social media. Pretty straightforward. It was great though because they had done this prior. They really didn't hire anyone for this job. It seemed like they just had a bunch of interns do it. So that was a little weird, but they had a head intern that had a lot of resources for all the incoming interns. So she said, hey, just read all this. This is how we do the process here. And then you can choose which social media site you want to stick to. So first day, I'm like, cool, looking through it. They used Canva, which is pretty easy to use. And then I made my post on all the social media sites, and I felt pretty accomplished for that first day. So it was a good first day.
What about you, Jesse?
So the first day I came in, and immediately they handed me some monitors, a laptop, a docking station, and say, go build a computer. Or not a computer, just a workstation, just a home setup, because there's probably about 300 employees there and 20 of them work in the building right now. So this is what they do. They give people a dock, a laptop, 2 monitors, and that's what they send them home with. So that's my setup at work. I'm one of the few employees that go there physically. which is kind of funny because during the interview they said, "Oh, maybe you'll come in every other week or something on the weekend to like mess with a server or something." But it's pretty much been physically every day, except for recently, till the end of this month because of COVID cases. Other than that, it was saying like, all right, here's, for example, like a ticketing system. Here's the softwares that we use. They have web pages that they create with Markdown, which is probably making web developers cringe. But it does work. And yeah, so it was just basically getting used to the environment the first couple of weeks. We're just getting warmed up to everything, getting used to it and all set up.
Awesome, thank you. And then what about you, Rohini? What was your first day like?
My first day was like an orientation day, which was great. But my first work day was a little different. With obviously everything being so COVID related, I had to work from home. But my manager would called me in the first day, explained to me, gave me all the stuff like Jesse's, gave me a laptop, asked me if I had monitors at home, gave me everything I needed. I had to come home, set up a workstation, which, by the way, if you guys are interning from home or working from home, highly recommend a place that you want. It's not next to your bed because you will get really tired. But yeah, so they explained me what I had to do, what systems that we used. So for me, working as a full-time now employee was very useful because I already had a purchasing internship before where I had a little background knowledge of what I was doing, but still it's a whole new system that I had to learn. My manager assured me like, hey, there's nothing wrong with you coming to me asking for questions. So it's just nice. So mainly it's like setting up a station at home, knowing what system you're going to use every day and knowing what your everyday life is going to look like.
Seems like there's a lot of technicality to it. And what about you, Tyler? What was your first day like?
Yeah, they decided that I was going to be permanently remote, so they mailed me a computer that I received on my first day. So my first day and throughout my first week was 60% meetings, and then the other 40% was going through their setup documentation and actually setting up my workstation from home. And it was also my responsibility to update their setup documents if it was out of date.
Awesome, thank you so much. So that was all really interesting for the first day, and so I want to ask for our final question. Um, what final advice would you give to other students applying to jobs or internships and how to secure one? If you guys had to boil down all your knowledge and know-how into just one small advice for each student here, what would you guys say? I'll give like a couple seconds to let it simmer and settle, and then we'll start with Marilyn.
I would say just keep trying, especially now, because I mean, I think we've all summed it up through all our questions and everything, but no matter where you are, whatever roadblock you hit, if it's up to your resume, if it's the actual interview, if it's the first day even, you really just have to keep trying because in the end, it's a requirement. So you do have to complete it, but you also want to get something out of it that means something to you. So keep trying for that opportunity, keep trying to perfect your resume, keep trying to get that callback. You got it.
And then what about you, Jesse?
He's spot on with the persistence. Another thing I would say is, don't be scared to apply to places that you think, I'm not good enough for this, or I don't have enough experience for this yet. There's a bit of truth in that, in the sense that companies don't want to just hire someone who knows nothing. But at the same time, they're not looking for a professional. Like, there's a reason why this position is for interns. They're not expecting the world out of you. Their company is most likely not going to crash and fall if you mess up. They understand that this is a learning position. You're taking your time. You're not necessarily on the level of everyone else there. And oftentimes it can be used as a platform to an official position later on.
And what about you, Tyler? what advice would you have?
Yeah. I have two pieces of advice. I couldn't really break it down into one. The first is something I brought up earlier, and that's don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, Jobs and internships, that they want you to succeed, and in order to succeed, you should definitely ask questions for things you don't understand. The second piece of advice is showing a willingness to learn. Once you leave college, your learning doesn't stop there. You're going to be learning throughout your entire working career, and showing a willingness to learn is an attitude that we really, really want in the workplace.
And what about you, Rohini?
Some of the advice I have, like Marilyn said, don't be afraid to apply. And especially for new graduates or soon to be graduates, really get in touch with your career service team. They're very helpful. Like, don't be know what you want to do and create a couple of resumes. Like, don't stick to one. Every company, every job, they have different requirements, and you may have those and might not fit in one or word them differently. Have a couple cover letters in hand, so when you see one, go ahead and apply for them.
So I think it was great we got that kind of spectrum. So for the intern side of things, just keep trying and not being scared to apply for places we feel underqualified for. And then on the job side, trying just like with the internships, but not being afraid to ask questions and showing a willingness to learn, and then having that preparation ready. I think that's just some awesome insight. So thank you so much, guys. So that was our last question. We will now open it up for the audience to submit any questions they want to ask the panelists in the chat. So if you guys that are watching have any questions you guys would like to ask, feel free to write it in the chat, and then we'll get it to the panelists. Awesome. So we'll start with our first question. What do you guys feel is best to show in interviews? Confidence, your personality, or something else entirely? That's an interesting question. Love to get your thoughts on it, guys. And we'll start with Jesse. What do you think of that?
I think confidence is important. Obviously, you don't want to be too far on the spectrum in either direction, like at the risk of seeming cocky or just unable to operate in the world due to shyness. So a good balance there, but personability is like really good. For example, in my first interview, the HR manager invited me in, and she had pictures of black cats everywhere. And I have an 18-year-old black cat. I've had her for like my entire life. So being able to make conversation just out of something simple like that goes a lot farther than, I'm here for this interview, let's talk about that. And that's going to mean a lot, if you get the position, because there's more to a workplace environment than just 100%, business.
What about you, Tyler? What do you think is best to show in interviews? And actually, one interesting thing is, or because you've done the hiring, you've been in that part of the hiring process too. What do you look for, or what do you think is the best to see in interviews? I think that would be an interesting insight.
Confidence. More often, we look for like underlying soft skills such as like communication. Honesty is another big one we look for. People mess up in the interviews all the time, and if you can identify where you messed up and why you thought that particular way, that's very helpful for the people giving the interviews.
You, Marilyn, what do you think is the best to show in interviews?
So for me, I think it's a good blend of both. I also know my strengths, and I know that at least I think my strength is my personality in an interview. And then when I research the company beforehand, I have confidence in what I am talking about. So I know myself and I'm confident in that and what I want to convey in an interview through my personality, if that answers it. But Tyler, I think, puts it right there in perspective because he's done it. He knows it. So
All right, thank you. And then what about you, Rohini? What advice would you have? What do you think is the best to show in interviews for you?
Confidence. You don't want to be too high up. You don't want to be too low down. Know yourself. Like, you know who you are. You know what you're applying for. If you feel like you're a good fit, you shouldn't have to worry. And like Tyler said, be honest. Like, I know a couple of my interviews, there were questions that I had no idea what it meant. And I was like, to be honest with you, I have no idea how to do this thing. And I think they actually like when you say that, instead of like they hire you for the job and you go in and they're like, well, you said you knew this. So be honest and have the perfect amount of confidence.
Guys. And so we'll go on to the next question from Kimberly. Do you guys feel that the internships you did help ease the worry of finding of what you want to do as your career? Or are you guys still unsure of what career path you really want to take? I think this is geared more towards the students. So let me ask between Marilyn and Jesse. And actually, Rohini and Tyler, if you guys have any insights on your internship experience leading to careers, that would be awesome too. So let's start with Marilyn. Did you feel like the internship helped ease the worry of finding of what you want to do as your career?
So for me, like I said, I'm studying business and my focus is data analytics. My internship was in social media, which is currently my job right now, different job, but still in social media. Personally, no, but I do believe that internships do ease the worry. And that was my initial goal with finding an internship, is to find one in a path that I may want to take. I know Rohini touched on earlier that her internship led her to a job where she wasn't sure about the job to begin with, but after the internship, she knew that was a job for her. And that's my perspective on internships as well. But my personal experience is that this internship showed me that that's not the job I want.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then what about you, Jesse? Did you feel like your internship helped you ease the worry of finding of what you want to do as in your career, or are you still kind of unsure of what career path you want to take?
Yeah, so I do have a general idea of the career path that I want to take upon graduation. The current internship that I have is not necessarily in line with that, but I do have a great appreciation for it in that it is not quite like the experience that I currently have, which is really helpful in forming a foundation of, having experience in a lot of areas. It's good to be really good at one thing, but it's also good to have to say, like, I have experience in, IT and in programming and in networking and all of these different things. Uh, so yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So it feels like internships are like you can test the waters almost, find out what you like, find out what you don't like from even internships. And do you guys have anything to add to that, Tyler or Rohini?
I can say something. I know.
Okay.
So I started interning when I was a sophomore. So I had 3 internship experience. I always thought I was a little bit more technical than like business. So I was always focused on the IT side. But when I did the purchasing internship, I know I absolutely fell in love with it. Having connections with whichever company you go for, make sure you have a good connection with them because you never know when you can use them for your references. It's very good thing. So for me, internship really helped me know my career path, and I love what I do now.
Tyler?
Yeah, my internship definitely shaped what I wanted to do in my career path. I internshiped at a startup company, and I found that I did very much not appreciate that. It was very unstructured, very stressful, and I just knew going forward, I don't want to do this again. I want to work at a fairly established company in my career.
That vibe, that almost unstructured vibe. Uh, it's wild. People love it, but also it's great that you had that experience, so you know that you want something more established. So we'll go on to the next question. It's from Ishani that I have read or heard that it's a good practice to update your resume quite often for precisely targeting specific positions. For instance, looking at job responsibilities, you know you quite fit the role, but the descriptions have different keywords. So would you update it? What is your opinion on this? So would you update your resume to precisely target specific positions? And would you keep on updating it for more positions and things like that? What's your opinion on that, guys? Let's start with Tyler for this one. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I updated my resume and my cover letter for every single position I applied to. And in order to change the language, I really looked at what positions they were hiring for and looking at that company history, like I talked about earlier, and using some of the language they used in their history, their goals, their values. That's very important.
You, Rohini?
I did have a couple resumes in hand. Obviously, it had the same information. Like Tyler said, keyword different words and responsibilities. With that being said, really keep in touch with your career services because they know what they're doing. They will help you out, make your resume look professional. Have a couple of them. It doesn't hurt.
In the interest of time, we'll move on to another question. Was where the location of the internship a concern, or should we start with local only businesses and then branch out? I was wondering between Marilyn and Jesse what you guys thought about internships in regards to location. Jesse, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I do think that this is kind of like a personal preference thing, but for me personally, distance is a big deal. I've had opportunities where I drive 45 minutes and by the time I get there I'm thinking this is not going to fly. So for me personally, I definitely enjoy probably 30 minutes max. I was lucky enough, mine is about a 12-minute drive from my house, so it's very nice. But recently I haven't been driving there at all because it's all virtual. But yeah, in the process of it, I would definitely say I would search out ones that are close. They sort of get more of a priority. But yeah.
About that, thank you, Jesse. What about you, Marilyn?
Well, I think if you want to have an internship that's in person, then definitely start with local businesses, especially if there's one you already have your eye on, go for it. But it's definitely a personal preference thing. For me, my preference would be in person, but if you can find an internship that's like exactly what you want, but it's virtual, go for that as well. I wouldn't want to drive too far for mine. Most of my jobs have only been like 20 minutes away at most, so take that into account. I mean, gas is expensive as well. And then there's also like a pandemic. So definitely a personal preference thing though.
Are you fine if I do one more question? Awesome. So this will be quick. I think we can get this done, but this will be geared towards Tyler. Are the employers more leaning towards certification during your interview process? So he's saying that certification is essential in the IT field, and so in your field, do you feel that the employers are leaning more towards that?
It depends on the position you're going for. I applied for like an entry level position or like a junior position. They really don't care about certifications when you're first starting. I would say they care more about certifications when you get into the senior or like the principal architect roles.
Do we have time for the one last question? I think we can go through that real quick. So we have one question. It says, my hope for internships was always that there would be more learning and teaching. Have you found that you learned and were taught new techniques, or were internships expecting you to have all the information? If you had questions and concerns about how to do something, did they provide a means of coaching or assisting? I think this would be an awesome topic for Jesse to talk about. Jesse, do you have any thoughts on that?
So walking into my internship, most of the technologies were new, although not too complicated. The company does have a a self-learning center. It's called Bookstack. They have like all of their technologies, basic problems that users might run into, general resolutions to those issues. So a lot of it you can just sort of self-read on. You don't have to go to your manager for every single thing and say, like, what does this do? You can get sort of a general feel from company documentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. All right. So that was our last question. We want to thank our panelists for sharing more about their experience. Be sure to check out our events for the rest of the week and reach out to Career Services and Experiential Learning if you have any questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.